Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Uncanny Media's The Show. I'm sick. I'm officially sick this time. I know I've had a cough for the last, it seems like months now. But something real hefty finally got me. Like, you can tell on my voice, I'm pretty tore up, so it's going to be difficult for me to do this episode. But I'm here for you, because it's me, your good buddy Spider. And I don't take nights off unless I absolutely have to. So we're going to keep on going. I have some kind of, from the best I can tell, because again I can't afford to go to the doctor, I have some kind of acute bordering on pneumonia. And it sounds like, oh no, because I remember when I was a kid, pneumonia used to be, it's super serious, and probably for certain people with certain conditions it still is. But for me, it's just a hefty pain in the backside. Not literally. I mean, it's not affecting that area. But I'm breathing fine. I have a lot of stuff in my throat. I'm achy and painy. This is actually a better day than yesterday and the day before. So even though I sound horrible, I'm feeling a little better. Not 100%, but I've been sweating out. I've been wearing layers upon layers to bed. With a thick blanket, a weighted blanket, trying to sweat as much as possible. And it's been making an impact. And I've been doing as much as I can with natural stuff, considering that I can't afford prescription medication. And so I've been trying different things. I'll let you know if they work. I mean, some people are going to laugh and be like, that's not going to work, that's stupid. But, I'm taking spoonfuls of raw honey 3 or 4 times a day. Because raw honey is antibacterial, it's antimicrobial, it's antiviral. And it does seem to help my throat when I take a spoonful. I'm not a super into sweets guy, so it's kind of like, it's a lot of sweetness all at once. But it has been seeming to help overall. So I'm sure I probably need some kind of antibiotics, but again, being able to afford to go to the hospital and actually get that prescribed would put me in so much debt that I'd never be able to climb out. And people laugh and they're like, what do you mean? It's just for, antibiotics. Yeah, you must not know how expensive that stuff is here in the United States if you do not have any insurance, which I do not. And I can't afford the insurance, which is why I can't afford to go to the hospital. So, anyway, we've been over that. I'm not going to rehash that again. How are you folks doing? It's been wild so far. It's been a wild week. The weather has been up, down, up, down, up, down, mostly cold. It's mostly been sub 20 degrees Fahrenheit, and today it actually got up into the 30s again. Let me see what it is right now. It's 36 degrees, which is a surprise. But I'm sure that's contributed to some of my health issue here, which is fantastic. Excuse me. I hope I'm not going to do that too much into your ears all night long. I'm going to try to be more consistent and try to talk through this as best I can. We're going to try to get through the whole hour if we can do it. And if we can't, well, I'm going to apologize in advance, but not really, because I'm the one that's sick, and I'm not going to apologize for being sick. It just happens. I actually have a focused topic tonight, which is crazy because I'm so unfocused from lack of sleep and being kept up by this set of viruses. This is the true crime episode. I'm not going to become a true crime podcast because I think researching all this stuff all the time would either make me depressed or it would just be like, ugh, this is grisly. I don't want to continue. And there's a lot of other good dedicated true crime podcasts already out there, and I'm not looking to break into that and steal anybody's thunder. A lot of other people do this much better than I do. I do my little stream of consciousness sort of rambly thing pretty good, and I'm not looking to break into another avenue like that. But I was interested in several things that have happened over the last few years, one of which is local. Excuse me. One of which is local. And the case is pretty much over now, considering everything that's happened. But it's a wild trip how this happened. Now, this occurred here in my town of Canton, Ohio, Hall of Fame City. There was a young man, and here's another weird thing about this: the papers were. It's Ohio, so even though it's 2025, and you would think, well, the newspapers are going to try to be, for the most part, relatively progressive or considerate of how certain people live their lives. Ohio still kind of lags behind on some civil rights issues, I guess we'll say. I don't want to get too into that topic because that gets into a lot of heated debate and various things on what I mean and what I'm talking about and what constitutes this and that. When the case first showed up, there was some confusion from the media and from the local police forces over the gender of the individual here. And I don't particularly think that's important. I don't see it as... It became a weird sticking point that didn't need to be one, and detracted kind of from what happened. So a lot of people were confused. It also got a lot of people opinionated about things and it sort of hampered the investigation, because a lot of people who might have been out looking for clues and things and helping out decided not to, which is kind of a shame, and you're going to find out why in a minute. An individual in my town went missing. His name was Ryan Godby, and Ryan was a 26-year-old drag performer, is what they call him in various bits of the media now. But when they first said that Ryan was missing, they hedged around it a little bit. They made it seem like he was a female, and then he wasn't, and then he was this, and then he was that. And while none of that really should be important, it became a weird, important thing that muddied things up. So a lot of people who were bigoted, who might have helped, didn't. And a lot of people who felt slighted because of the way it was handled decided not to. And so it got to be a weird thing. And so I have to kind of be a little bit annoyed with the local authorities and the local newspaper. The local newspaper here is called The Repository, and I have a nickname that I call it. And I'm not the only person who calls it this, because they frequently... I'll say it right out. They're pretty much useless unless they're talking about local sports. And I don't even know how accurate that is because I don't follow local sports, so I can't say yes or no that they're getting that right. But they have a poor track record of their reporting. Their reporting is usually lacking in detail and in evidence and in readability. And they want you to pay... I mean, newspapers, yes, I know, you got to pay a certain amount to get a newspaper out of a newspaper machine. Okay, I get it. But they want you to pay for all their digital news, whereas, you go to the big places like CNN, Fox, whatever, all those other people, they put articles online and it's free. But maybe it's just because they're big enough that they can afford it, and these guys are small and they can't, and they got to pay for something somehow. But the most interesting stories that you would actually want to know about are usually locked behind a paywall. And I refuse to do that, so. But my nickname for them, getting it right back around here. I'm getting sidetracked already. My nickname for them, and other people have this, is the suppository. It's not the repository, it's the suppository. And I'm sure if any of them ever bothered to tune in and listen, they'll probably be offended, and they'll want to sue me for slander or libel. And I'm not. I'm only repeating the nickname that's out there already. You know? I doubt my reach extends far enough to get people to not read your newspaper. So good luck trying to prove that I've damaged your reputation. You've already done that yourselves, to be honest. So, anyway. Anyway. I have to be kind of irritated with them and with the local police forces for how they initially talked about Ryan Godby. But he went missing in June. They had flyers all over town. A lot of people were looking for him. He left a nightclub one night with somebody who was supposed to be his roommate. And then he went missing. They couldn't find the body. They couldn't find it. Well, by this time nobody knew that whether he'd been murdered or not. That's the spoiler. Spoiler alert, he was murdered. Which is sad, but don't eat that, cat. Cat, don't eat that. No, don't eat that. Hold on. Don't eat that. Huh. Kittens are trying to eat my cords and things. So anyway, Ryan goes missing. There's a lot of people out searching, and a roommate of his gets picked up. What's the guy's name? Let me see here. What's the guy's name? I'm trying to find it. I should know because this is the guy it's going to be important. Goodness, where is it at now? Daniel Mattei. Okay, the guy's name is Daniel Mattei, who was his roommate. And apparently they were also, they also had some intimate relations together, which is not, I'm not going to look down on anybody for same-sex whatever. It's 2025. People do what they want to do. Who cares? That's not the point here. But that guy was questioned, apparently gave weird, unsatisfactory answers, and eventually they got a confession out of him. And he said, oh yeah, I did it. And he was arrested. But he wouldn't tell them where the remains were. He wouldn't tell them where the body was. And so the search turned into let's find the body. And people searched for weeks and weeks and weeks and months. And they didn't find the remains until August. The guy never told them where it was at. They didn't find, and they weren't even full remains, they were partial remains. So they found partial remains that they were able to identify as Ryan Godby. So that's the unfortunate end of what happened to him. He went missing and he was murdered by this former roommate, who was also apparently a former romantic entanglement. Daniel Mattei. And fast forward to last month when about 6 days ago. This is how recent this was. 6 days ago. Now, today is, as I'm recording this is the 10th. This is a key date. Today, Daniel Mattei was supposed to go to a hearing to alter his plea for the plea deal because he offered to tell them where the rest of the remains were in a plea deal. And we don't know what the plea deal was going to entail. Nobody knows if it was going to shorten his sentence or what the deal was. But 6 days ago, before this happened, Daniel Mattei, the killer, he ended himself. I can't use the word because once this gets to YouTube, eventually they'll censor it and they won't monetize it if I use that word, which I understand. But so Daniel Mattei, who was 35, he took his own life in the jail, which was a local jail, which is not far from here. It's just like a couple of miles from where I live, and they took him to the local hospital where my daughter was born, which is just up the road here. And they couldn't do anything about it, and he was gone. So he made the deal. He told them where the rest of the remains were, and then he ended himself. And it's a weird, twisted end to a local case that was pretty tragic. That didn't need to happen. The guy. It's hard to say if the guy received the punishment that he deserved. You know, because I'm not in favor of people just being sent to prison forever for murdering people. I'm not in favor of life in prison for something like that, because we're paying to keep you alive when you deprived somebody else of that life. And I know a lot of people can go into moral things. Well, there's the power of forgiveness, and there's this, and there's that. But I'm very much life for a life as far as that goes. If you have gone out of your way to take out somebody else, and it wasn't because they were trying to off you first. You know, self-defense is a whole big area, though. You know, I'm all for if somebody's trying to murder you, and you didn't push him into it, like you didn't, like, aggravate them to the point where they just flipped. If you're an innocent victim and they try to murder you and you turn around and end them instead in self-defense, you know what? That's something else. That's you defending your life and your family and whatever else. I think there should be some leniency in that regard. But if you go and you are the aggressor and you take out somebody for whatever reason, I mean, some people say, well, maybe they were crazy and maybe they can be rehabilitated. And, you know, even if you can be, who's to say that something in their brain can't flip a switch again and they can't go back to being a murderous individual? If you are a murderer and that's what you did and it wasn't self-defense and it was just you, for whatever reason, feeling like you had to end somebody, I think that's it for you. You know, I think that's the end for you. I don't think we should be paying for you to live rent-free in a jail cell for the rest of your life. I don't think we should be doing that. I think you should go. Like Charles Manson, you know? Whether he actually did the crime himself is kind of irrelevant. He masterminded, and he was obviously insane. Why do you keep somebody like that alive? There's no way they're going to be rehabilitated. He's I don't remember, is he still alive or did he finally pass, Charles Manson? I think he passed, didn't he? Now I'm going to look it up because let me see. Oh yeah, he passed in 2017. But there was no way he was going to be rehabilitated. He was nutty all the way up through that time. Like, every time they had a hearing, he was just the same crazy man, you know? You can't rehabilitate some people. Why keep them around? I'm not for indiscriminately murdering people. I'm not. I don't want people to get the wrong idea. I'm not bloodthirsty. I'm not out for just every prisoner deserves to die. No, I'm not. That's not what I'm saying, because a lot of people don't. Some people make mistakes, and some people have done things that, yeah, they're like theft and whatnot. Don't murder somebody for that. Don't end somebody's life for that. Just definitely punish them and try to convince them not to take things anymore, but don't kill them. Like serial rapists, yeah, end them. If it's happened more than once, end them. Murderers, end them. People who's messed with kids multiple times, end them. There's no saving them. There's no rehabilitation available for that. Smoking dope on private property, leave them alone. Don't bother them. If you're in a state where that's legal, well, fine, sober them up and send them home. There's no reason to keep them in prison forever. So there's degrees to it, but this is a crazy situation that ended in a way that was really unexpected. Now, right now, ignoring my little awkward segue there, there's a big case going through being debated in the courts that's a murder case. And this is going to be a touchy one for some people. Some people are going to tell me I'm out of line. Some people are going to tell me that I'm a bootlicker or some stupid buzzword term like that means nothing. Like, you look at my track record of following rules and ordinances, and you want to call me a bootlicker? Okay. You look back during the 19, I'm going to call it that so that the eventual YouTube doesn't censor me again. During the years of the 19, all the things that I talked about, all the things that I went through, you tell me that I'm a bootlicker. You go ahead. I haven't changed my attitude on any of that, okay? But let's talk about Luigi Mangione. Now, there's still a chance that they can say that he didn't do it. All right? And if he's proven innocent, okay. That's a whole other story, and I'm not going to be, if he's innocent, if he really is innocent, then he's innocent. But here's currently what is considered the facts of the case. He researched and knew who this guy was. He approached the former CEO of an insurance conglomerate called United Health. Now, I'm going to tell you right off the bat, insurance these days is a flat-out scam. They don't cover enough of anything. They don't help you out, which, again, this is why I don't have insurance, because I can't afford it, because it's a scam. Because if I could afford it, it wouldn't cover the things that I need done. So I'm firmly in that camp. Okay, I'm with the people. I'm with you on the whole medical thing. I'm with you. I'm your buddy. I'm your friend. Okay? But this CEO guy was walking along a New York street, and according to the current evidence, Mr. Luigi Mangione walked up behind him and shot him dead. And I don't remember if they were able to prove that he had some kind of issue as far as insurance, like he'd been denied a procedure, or his relatives had been denied a procedure, or maybe he just didn't like the healthcare system or whatever, but he offed the guy, disappeared. They were able to pick him up later based on eyewitness accounts, and they searched his bag and they found the various things that he used, right? So The sticking point here, there's a couple of points, but the big sticking point is that when they searched his backpack and the things to find the murder weapon, which they've been able to connect to the scene, it's forensic evidence, so it's not like they didn't just say, "Oh, this is a gun that looked like it." The type that they checked the chemical residue and all that kind of stuff. It was the one that did it. When they checked his stuff, they didn't have a warrant. Now they're relying on reasonable doubt, or reasonable suspicion, or whatever you want to call it. The defense is pushing to get stuff thrown out, which will get the case thrown out, because if they can't enter the murder weapon into evidence because they searched for it without a warrant, then that basically means there's no murder weapon and there's nothing to tie the guy to the thing. Unless somebody's really creative and manages to figure it out. The other thing that makes this complicated is that because people are really annoyed with the healthcare system and with the insurance companies and with that, he's kind of looking like a folk hero. Like he's fighting the good fight, right? Robin Hood, he's helping the people. And I can get that from a certain standpoint, but you don't just walk up and just murder somebody who can't really... The CEO of the company isn't the only person making decisions. He's just one cog in the machine. Even if he's the CEO, he's got a board of directors. He's got there's a lot of other people involved in making the policy decisions that are basically using that insurance to screw you over. To be fair. See, I'm with you, people. I'm with you. So for one, taking him out doesn't do any good. Unless you're just trying to start a campaign of fear so that the other ones all change their ways, which is never going to work because the insurance business is how it is. But the other thing is you can't just walk up and just shoot somebody like that. You can't. You can't do that. It's against the law. It's terrible for society. It's just downright not cool. Okay? Even if the person was a scumbag. Right? And I'm not saying the CEO guy was a scumbag. I didn't know him personally. I don't know anything about him. I know he's part of an insurance company, and insurance sucks. But, I don't know anything about him as a person. So, unless the guy was a mass murderer or a serial rapist or something like that, I mean, you can't just walk up and murder somebody. And people are pouring money into this guy's defense fund and you should get off because he's fighting the good fight. No, you can't just walk up and murder somebody. If you could, I'm not saying I would or I wouldn't. I'm just saying there's a lot of people in the world that deserve, because of being heinous people. There are also a lot of people who, as much as they're heinous people, they don't deserve to be ended because they haven't done something that heinous. I have people that I 100% dislike with every fiber of my being. Would I shed a tear if they were gone? No, not really. But do I think somebody should go and take them out right now? No. That's not up to me. That's not... they're another person, I'm another person, whatever. As far as I know, they're not out murdering people or touching little kids. Maybe if they were, maybe I'd feel different, but these people aren't. So just because we don't get along and we're enemies does not mean they should be taken out of the picture like that. Now, will I use every other avenue at my availability to try to stop them from being successful? Sure. I'm actively doing that right now. But I'm not going to personally put their life in danger. Because that's not necessary. That's not how polite society works. And you could argue also that we're not polite society anymore, that we are who we are, but I still like to believe that there's some semblance of civilization existing right now to keep us from doing that kind of stuff. So if Mr. Luigi Mangione, if they tie the evidence together and they definitively say, yep, he's the one that did it, you know what, that should be it for him. Because you can't just walk up and murder somebody. Regardless of how I feel about the insurance companies, because the insurance companies are trash. I'll say that right off the bat. But that's no excuse to walk up and murder somebody. It's not. Let's talk about something else that's also interesting. Excuse me, I'm sniffling here. I'm going to talk about another thing that I found really interesting. And this was the University of Idaho murders, which were, I believe, they have finished that case. I don't know if they've sentenced him yet. Let me take a look here. See the legal proceedings. I'm going to make sure I... Okay, he has been sentenced. So, let's talk about Brian Kohberger. Okay, Brian Kohberger is the perpetrator, and I believed he was from the start. I think it was pretty clear. I think it was pretty clear. There was a lot of back and forth, and he was a smart guy, so he did a lot of tricks to get out of it, but eventually he cut a deal. He was the perpetrator of a series of murders in 2022 at the University of Idaho. He went into the home of 4 other students, 3 of whom were young ladies. One of them was a young man. And he broke in and he murdered all 4 of them. And he was, what's crazy about this is he was studying something as far as criminal justice. He earned a bachelor's degree in psychology in 2020 and a master's degree in criminal justice in 2022. And he was pursuing a PhD at Washington State University. And he was a doctoral student in criminology. See? So he was learning all this stuff, and he was learning how to get away with things, and he just made a couple of mistakes, and they picked him up. And he acted super superior the whole time. He acted like they didn't have anything on him. He had this look in his eyes, though. He had this empty look. And I mean, that's not what some people say. Well, that's just discriminatory. That's how his face looked. Well, sure, but you look at that and you tell me that you don't see something wrong. I knew from the beginning. I had this definite sensation. This guy did it. This guy 100% did it. And it went on for a while. The defense tried to say that he had some kind of autism spectrum disorder, try to get him out of certain sentencing and whatnot. And he apparently was sentenced after a plea deal to avoid the death penalty. Which, again, I just talked about how I feel about that kind of thing. If you do something, 4 people are dead, and he gets to live, right? There's something wrong with that. He made a plea deal, pled guilty, and was sentenced to 4 consecutive life sentences in prison without parole, and another paltry 10 years for burglary. And he was also ordered to pay a combined fine of $250,000 and $20,000 combined in restitution. And where are they going to get that money from? How's he going to pay for that in life in prison? Right? Sometimes the sentences are nonsensical. How are you supposed to get that? Is he supposed to work at the machine shop doing the license plates? They don't do that anymore. They don't do that anymore. But, how's he supposed to pay for that kind of stuff? Is the prison system going to pay from the taxpayer money that goes in to keep him alive for his 4 consecutive life sentences? Just off the guy. Just be done with it. Just be done with it. He murdered 4 people. He murdered 4 people. All in one go. Just... No deals. No deals. Put an end to him. Put an end to him. Again, I'm not a bloodthirsty person. I don't think you should go around just executing prisoners just because you can. But he murdered 4 people. Come on. Common sense. Common sense. And there's just been so many things this past year or two that have been crazy. The other thing that I followed this case pretty closely. Let me look her up. All right. Have you heard about the Doomsday Murders? The Vallow Daybell Doomsday Murders is what it's being called. And this is an extensive list of things. It started with one thing, and there's so many things. There's so many parts to this. This is Lori Vallow Daybell and her husband Chad Daybell. And they led a cult. They had a Mormon religious sect there was a Doomsday cult. It wasn't just that they were Mormons. I'm not saying all Mormons are cultists. I'm just going to say... Excuse me. Oh, that must be gross to listen to. I'm sorry. But they particularly had one of those end of the world things coming on, right? Now, this started in July of 2019. Lori had an estranged husband, Charles Vallow, and he was shot dead by her brother, Alex Cox. Next, and this is what got people's attention, this is what made me follow the case, her daughter and adopted son, Tylee and Joshua, disappeared. Right? And in 2019, Lori's nephew-in-law survived a murder attempt. On October 19th, her new husband, Chad's wife, was murdered at their home. And the brother, Alex Cox, from the first one, believed to have participated in all of the crimes, died before he could be brought to trial. And Lori and Chad, while the children were missing, moved to Hawaii while the children were missing. And eventually they found the remains of the children in 2020 and tied them to the 2 adults and broke the case wide open. But it's so crazy. Lori would say things like the devil was in her son JJ, and and so many people involved have just died mysteriously. Like somebody was murdered. Oh, somebody else was murdered. Oh no, somebody else was attempted murder. And then the children are missing. And then they found the children's remains. And they tried to let's see. Lori was found guilty on all charges related to the 2 children and her new husband's ex-wife. She was sentenced to life imprisonment without parole. She's crazy, though. She's absolutely crazy. You should see some of the depositions. You should see some of the things that she says. Like, and she's got the look. She's got the look. She's crazy. After that, her new husband Chad was found guilty of all charges. And he was sentenced to death. So, I don't know why they didn't do that for her. Because she was later found guilty of conspiring to murder her former husband. And she was given 2 additional life sentences. And both of them have appealed the sentencings. Like, he seems like a stone cold killer. The new husband, he seems like a stone cold killer. Looking at him and hearing some of the things. Because he blamed her for a lot of it. He was smart enough to be like, man, I'm screwed. And he tried to blame her for most of it. But they convicted him on everything. But she comes off just insane. Like, she's just... And they tried to play that card, too. They tried to play the not guilty by reason of insanity. But just because you're crazy doesn't mean you didn't do it. Right? You're a danger to the public, whether you're crazy or not. There's the 2 former spouses, the former husband of her and the former wife of the other guy that she's involved in. The brother-in-law, who's gone. The former nephew, who was almost murdered. Let's see. And the 2 kids. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 4 definitive murders she's involved in, and 1 attempted. And crazy or not, you're going to let her live? Really? You're going to sentence the other guy to death, but you're going to let her live? Come on now. She can't be fixed. She can't be fixed. Neither one of them can be fixed. They're vicious, heartless people. They went on vacation in Hawaii to avoid getting caught. Like, are you serious? Come on. And we're letting them appeal and everything because of the justice system. Because, this is until proven guilty and and everybody deserves their day in court. Come on. They did it. Just end it. Just end them. Like, I don't get it. I don't get it. It's crazy stuff. I'm going to talk about one more thing. But I'm not going to mention names because this one's not close to home in a way that it involves anybody in my family, because it doesn't. Because it's right here in my neighborhood. And I don't want to put anybody else's family in the crosshairs. I don't want anybody to start harassing anybody or whatnot, if you know my area. I have a neighbor. I did. The rest of his family still lives there. Okay. I have neighbors across the road. It's our 3rd set of neighbors across the road. When we first moved in, there was some guy squatting over in the house across the road, I guess. And he eventually got sent packing, and I don't know whatever happened to him. He's gone. Hopefully he's doing well in life. I don't know. But another couple moved in. They redid the house. They did a lot of work on it. They, put a lot into it, but they always meant to flip it. So they spent some time there, spent a few years. We got to know them, we talked to them, and then eventually they were like, oh yeah, we're selling the house. We're moving. So they sold the house to a guy who had his parents move in, and he took care of his niece, I guess, because his sister was... She shows up every so often. I guess she's got drug problems and man problems and whatever. But one of his nieces lived there. He was taking care of her, and then his other niece would show up and hang out sometimes, and we got to know them, and he would loan us tools and help us with car stuff, and he would be out grilling, and he said everything seemed like a nice enough guy, right? As happens, because, every once in a while I'll see it in the neighborhood. I looked out the window, and there's police vehicles outside. They're walking up and down the street, and they're looking at things, and I'm like, oh, that's interesting. So I go outside, and I'm curious, and one of them asks me, hey, have you seen your neighbor over here? And I hadn't seen him for a few days, but he'd been around. I was like, yeah, he was just here the other day. And I didn't mean to. I want to be clear. I was not intending to be a snitch or anything of that nature. Because I was just, as far as I knew, the guy hadn't done anything. I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know what they were looking for. But it apparently gave them the impetus to be like, oh, well, he's been around here then. Because they were looking for him. So and when you hear what happened, might be a little bit better. You're not going to look at me like I ratted him out, because it wasn't like a small thing, okay? What they told me at first, which got me like, oh, was, well, if you need anything, give us a call, because this is some pretty serious charges, and he's dangerous. And I was like, oh, okay. Because when they went over there, they knocked, and the rest of the family wouldn't answer the door. Family, it's loyalty, whatever. And I didn't know anything that was going on. I had no clue. But apparently they ended up picking him up at some point over the next day or so. And he had a relationship with some lady who was a single mom, who'd had kids, who'd had daughters. And I know you're dreading what I've got to say next. People are like, oh, no, he didn't. And apparently he did. Apparently he was doing things to or with the daughters. And these aren't teenage daughters, these are preteens. He was doing something. I don't know the details. I've never heard the exact details. I've looked up the case in the local, because local court cases are public record here in this part of Ohio. You can look them up and you can find out what the proceedings were if you know somebody's name. And so he went to court for it. And they don't give you the details. They don't tell you exactly what happens. They just tell you what the charges are. And the charges spell out some things. Okay? So he's in prison for at least 12 years. And he lived right across the street. He would talk to my wife when she was outside, when my daughter was outside, and she's clearly not even a teenager yet. No inclination that he was that he had any kind of, that he would do something like that. And so it's weird. It's weird, and it's unsettling. It's unsettling that somebody right next door. It's a 1-lane road. It's not even a 2-lane road. You have to, if somebody's coming from one way and you're trying to get the other way, somebody has to move. You can't pass vehicles on it. It's a single-lane street. Right across the single-lane street is this other house where this guy was. And he does this kind of stuff. It's disheartening. It's disturbing. And I don't know. This neighborhood has had some weird stuff happen. Before that happened, of course, I had the neighbors next door who they're gone too. Now there's some other people there who are perfectly fine. They don't cause anybody any issues. They mind their own business. No issues with them. But before them, there was a lady who had multiple baby daddies to not to put too fine of a point on it. And the one night, the current one, they had a huge fight, broke windows, and kids were outside in the cold, and they got evicted because they couldn't pay the rent. But before then, we had a lady shooting heroin in the driveway with the dude she was seeing, who was not her son's father, and her son in the backseat of the car. She was shooting the heroin between her toes. And when the police came up to ask her about it, she said it was prescription treatment ordered by the court to get over heroin addiction. You don't do that. You don't inject it between your toes if it's prescription from the court, okay? It's not recovery medicine if you're injecting it between your toes. It's not. Come on. And then before them, we had no, either it was before or after. I don't remember the sequence. There's so many different. I've had so many neighbors on this other side. These people, I had bank robbers, legitimate, absolutely legit. They robbed a bank, then they wrecked the truck, got caught. Then there was squatters living there that were friends of theirs that tried to steal my car. They tried to take my license plate in another stolen car, and then they got busted, and they got arrested for 4 years. Like, I've had some adventures with the people next door. Don't tell me. Oh. This is the most stable the neighborhood has been in over a decade. There's been the people next door on that side now, they're perfectly fine. Don't cause any problems, don't cause any issues. Across the road, with that guy gone, the family is kind of, they are what they are. His parents are there, and his dad, I guess, is slowly dying from some disease, which is sad. The niece still shows up and complains about her life. Whatever. On the other side, I've got another nice family. They don't bother anybody. So, most of the people in the neighborhood are okay. Now, it's taken so long, but this place was full of criminals. It was full of it. Full of criminals. When I first moved in here, before we even moved in, when we were first looking at the house, me and my wife, we parked in the back behind the house to wait for the landlord to show up to show us the house when we were first going to decide whether to rent it or not. And we parked there, we were waiting, and people who were in the house behind us, who don't live there anymore, but they had lived there at the time, they came out in folding chairs and watched us real, grumpy and angry, because they thought, because apparently this happened a lot, that I had picked up a prostitute and I was parking there so that she could do what she needed to do. And I had to tell them, no, we're not doing that. We're just here to see the house. And they were like, oh, okay, but people do that all the time. And I was like, oh, great. This is going to be a great neighborhood. And it's turned out good. Now, it's taken this long. But it's had some ups and downs. So, anyway, I'm about worn out. I've managed to make it almost a full hour. It's a few minutes shy, but I think that's fine. I hope you enjoyed some of this commentary. I'm not going to be, like I said, I'm not going to become a true crime podcaster. I think other people do it better than me. I just kind of gloss over things and give my opinion. But I thought it was an interesting topic, and we did fill up some time here with it. Let me see. Do I have anything planned for next week? I'm going to take a look. I do have at least one episode planned over time, but I don't know if it's next week's or not. No, I have... This is episode 43. I have 44 and 45, which I'm not sure of yet. And then episode 46, which will be the last one of the year. It'll be my last episode of 2025. It's going to be a retrospective episode, which I don't usually like to do because, I don't like to do retroactive, like, look at all the great things I did. But I'm going to do one this time just because it's been a big year. It's been a great year. And I'm going to go back and look at some of my past episodes. I'm not going to play clips. It's not going to be a clip show. It's not going to be that kind of thing. It's just going to be me talking about how far we've come, how far we still have to go, and what we can do to continue entertaining everybody. So, but that's it. I'm going to leave you off with that, and I'm going to get out of here, have some food, and try to relax and try to get over this stuffiness. And hopefully I'll feel better by next week. So thank you for listening. I appreciate everybody. Have a good night.